I'm Lucy.
I'm Hayley.
I'm going to go through 3 gig horror stories.
Now, you've been doing live music gigs solo for a long time now.
8 years now,
Yeah, right.
I think.
Let's go through some of the worst gigs you've had to play.
The first gig horror story I want to tell you about is one that happened on the coast by the water during a popular public holiday in summer. It was a heat wave. It would have been close to 40 degrees.
So I assume this was an outdoor gig as well.
It was an outdoor gig. Yeah, lovely summer day, but it was boiling hot. I arrived already sweating to death. They pointed to the sundial, and that's where they suggested I sit up.
So
they thought it was like a stage. It was this raised thing, round cement, a sundial, but I guess they were treating it like a stage.
Let me get this straight. So a sundial, which needs sun in all hours of the day for it to work. That is how it functions. That's where they wanted you to play.
In a heat wave.
Heat wave.
Yeah.
So you effectively became the sundial at that point.
Yeah, you could follow my slowly wilting shadows. I politely asked if maybe there was somewhere else I could be, because they did have a gazebo. They were like, yeah, of course, that makes sense. So there were lots of people around in there, swimmers, and they were wet and dripping all over things.
Oh, right. So you had the general public kind of walking around the space.
So they kicked some teenagers off a picnic table, and they grabbed what I think was a broken umbrella, and they had to like tape it. No. They kind of had to tape the umbrella so it would stay up, because I think it was kind of like, but anyway,
So they tried to accommodate what they could.
They tried, but it meant that I had to be backed right up to this picnic table to get under the umbrella. So I had my amp set up on the picnic table, and I was as close as possible to the bench seat so that I could get under the shade.
And so that was the worst part of the gig?
No, so much worse.
Right.
I'm sweating thinking about it. So I start playing this gig under this dodgy umbrella, and there's lots of wet teenagers running around, and they start to like sit on the picnic table.
Right. In their wet
swimmers, just dripping on my gear, and the security guard for the event was just walking around, just having a good old chat. I'm a pretty small person. These teenagers, some of them were calling out racist things to one of the other security guards.
So not good vibes.
And I'm just standing there playing through Wonderwall or something like that. Yeah, I didn't feel like I was in a position to tell them to stop or to go away. All of a sudden, this huge mob of teenagers just runs up the road. I had no idea what was going on. I'm still standing there playing Jolene, and it was like they were chasing somebody.
Right.
And then later the police started to show up.
Okay.
Walking around.
Right.
And it turns out that there was some guy in the water taking photos of young girls. Somebody had noticed it, called him out on it, and then they just mobbed him. It was crazy. It just felt like the gig just got worse and worse. That felt like a really long day.
That sounds like a really awful day. Right, well that's quite the story. What else have you got?
One time where I actually ended up getting lost after playing at a private party in an area that I wasn't familiar with. It had been raining a lot and the roads were starting to close, flash flooding.
And you were indoors for that?
Kinda.
Okay.
I got there to the gig, pull up in a massive puddle, and there's this mud everywhere, and you're kind of trying to drag your gear through the mud. They weren't expecting it to rain like it was, so everybody was crammed into the house and onto this little veranda. So they put me in this little corner on the veranda. It was a 40th birthday party, so the big balloon zero like smacking me in the head.
And so you were literally pushing 40 at that gig.
People were so close. Couldn't hear anything because it was raining so hard.
Right.
And people talking and rain. It was just
and trying to talk over.
Trying to talk over and
each
sound
other.
out the music. Yeah. By the time I'd finished playing the gig, it had rained a whole lot more. The way I came into that town, I couldn't leave that same way because of the flash flooding going on. I ended up going where my GPS was telling me to go. The road I was on ended up being flooded as well. Flashing lights and the road was barricaded. So every time I put in the address I was trying to get to, it just wanted to take me this one way.
Take you back to the flooded street.
Just wanted to keep going back to this flooded street. I didn't know the area, and I'm also just terrible with directions in general. I really have to rely on the map. It's dark. It wasn't a city. It was pitch black.
Out in the backwoods.
Yeah. I'm driving down these back roads that I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to come across another flooded road. It's raining. It's pitch black. You can't see that far ahead of you. I panicked. for a little while and just sat in the car trying to figure out what to do. I just put in the closest town that I could think
get
of
out of there.
that had like traffic lights that was more built up than where I was, and then from there I could navigate my way back home. I feel like it was 4 hours.
So longer than the gig itself.
Yeah, I was exhausted. Days later I got a message from the person who booked me for this. She was like, "Thanks so much, Misty."
And who's Misty?
I don't know, she didn't know my name.
You were at the right party though.
I was at the right party. That summed up that gig really nicely. It's moments like those where I know that I really enjoy what I do.
You must
I
love
have
it.
to. Thanks, Misty.
I know that you've also arranged your own gigs. I know you did an EP launch. Why don't you tell us about that?
For my first EP, I really wanted to do a proper EP launch. It ends up being one of my favourite gigs, but it's like a long way of getting there. You spend months and months planning for it, and it actually got to the point where it was sold out. It meant so much to me. On the morning of the launch, the wind really started to pick up, and I started to get these messages: "Is the gig still going ahead?" I wasn't in the same suburb as the venue, so I didn't know what was going on. We started driving to the venue. It just didn't look right. It was really windy,
Something
and
brewing.
there was there's like smog or something in the air, and there was stuff blowing everywhere. The wind was really bad. And I got to the venue, the staff were frantically dragging chairs inside. Apparently the chairs had started to blow around. Other parts of the venue were starting to... Venue decided to cancel it. People were starting to turn up.
Oh, no.
You know. I just broke down. I started crying because this is kind of fresh out of COVID, so I'd already lost a lot of work. I was definitely burnt out. I remember like talking to my best friend on the phone and just like... My family were there, my dad had driven down, and then I learnt later that a couple of my friends driving to the venue, it was so windy, a branch fell through their windscreen.
Oh no.
I felt really bad.
So obviously that's not where the story ends. It
Yeah.
does have a happy ending.
A few months later, same venue, there was a chance of rain. Let's get some ponchos for people to hand out, pack an umbrella. My family actually went out and bought gazebos to set up.
Yeah, right.
Big black clouds started to slowly move in
Right.
overhead. I got up on stage and I was doing it. I was singing the songs to this lovely crowd of people. Torrential rain, just huge downpour on these poor people. They all like put on their little plastic ponchos. They all like crowded around these little gazebos. I was seeing this like river start to form, and the sound guy on the side of the stage was standing there like, hurry up.
But you got up there and you got to do it.
Got to do it, and the people stuck it out.
The die-hard fans.
Yeah.
So that was the top 3 gig horror stories. And now that we're going to be doing it full time, there'll be more to come.
Yeah, have I turned you off it?
Not yet.
No?
Although, what do you think was the worst one?
Do you have any horror stories of your own?
Yes.
Yes.
Let us know in the comments.